All right, guys, this is I Am Live. The last time I used this, I had the site that I'm using had an issue with the sound, so I'm kind of checking that, giving people time to get here. I'm off. I'm off work today. With the sound, so I'm nice. There is a delay, but we're there. Awesome, guys. So what we have here is something that I went back and forth on. Do I really want to talk about? Because I have a few predictions, and then sometimes you got to remember that these things are just about having fun. But I went with the most recent article that I could find because on Monday, Entertainment Weekly had an article that I thought was pretty cool. But we are finally getting, after 4 years, Batman 3 Jokers. And I have some thoughts on it because we've been waiting on this for 4 years. Back in 2016, as you can see with what I have here, DC sort of apologized for their fiasco. That was the DC 52. DC 52 is where they had a Flashpoint miniseries, and they sort of changed everything about the DC universe to make it fresh and young and everything, right? It started out strong and just pittered its way, had 3 or 4 pretty good books, in my opinion. But as an apology to the fans, Geoff Johns stepped up. Dan Didio was supposed to have been on board, and they gave us DC Rebirth. We had a bunch of one-shots, and we got returned to all the things that made these characters be cool. And part of what Geoff Johns announced was if you follow these storylines and stuff for the next 2 years, they were all going to dovetail, and we we're going to get a big payoff, which I thought was, fantastic. I mean, I had a lot of faith in this because Geoff Johns has rarely steered this wrong here. And one of the things they teased in Justice League 50 back then was Batman ended up sitting in the Mobius chair when they were involved with Darkseid and the New Gods and stuff. He asked a question of the chair of who the Joker was and said it was impossible, and there were supposedly 3 Jokers running around. Another thing they were going to do was Doomsday Clock, which was supposed to be in a standalone 12-issue maxi series that, even though it wasn't going to have a lot of tie-ins, and it wasn't officially a sequel to The Watchmen, I think he finally said, but it was going to play a big part in all the storylines dovetailing and answering how did Rebirth even happen, which was supposed to have been Dr. Manhattan had entered the DC universe. I'm very dry on this. I'm just, chugging along here, giving you the bullet points. But he had entered the DC universe previously, supposedly at the end of Watchmen, when he said he wanted to go create some new life for you guys that know your Watchmen. And stole 5 years from the DC universe. It was even speculated that he created the DC universe. But he was messing with our timeline, messing with things, just messing with everybody. And it actually was pretty exciting. And then things were obviously hijacked from this plan. Geoff Johns wasn't really working with his position at DC Comics. He was in the creative side of a lot of the TV shows and DC Universe shows that came on the DC Universe streaming app you can get, being involved in Doom Patrol, Teen Titans, that sort of thing. Doomsday Clock ended up being viciously late consistently. I think it took like 2.5 years to get 12 issues out, and you can sort of tell they just sort of lost their way with this. And then we've had the announcement of 5G, where Dan Didio was going to go ahead and just redo the whole entire history of DC Universe, sort of have them. It came off to me like they were going to age the characters realistically, and we're going to go into the 5th generation of characters, and there's going to be 4 or 5 one-shots explaining the new history, where Wonder Woman was the first hero. Dan Didio was removed from DC Comics, and now it's up in the air of what they're going forward with. Now, the whole point of me talking about that part of it is because whenever there's a reboot, relaunch, revamp, soft reboot, anything going on at one of these comic book companies, any of the comics from 6 months to a year, just depending on how long they planned it out and when they've said they're going to do this, they really rarely have anything worth reading that's going to count up until that relaunch and reboot. It becomes filibuster, or we might get a pretty cool story out of there. The best example I can do for you seasoned collectors out there is the DC Comics Crisis on Infinite Earths. If you go back and read from like 225 to 325 to 350, or is it 225 to 250? Anyway, we're going back to the early 80s. of the Flash comic books. Flash had killed Professor Zoom, the Reverse Flash. He went on trial. He ended up getting plastic surgery, changed his face, changed his hair, tried to reveal his identity, and he ended up going into the future and living, which was a very cool story. But the reason they took all those chances is because they knew that the crisis was coming and Flash was going to die in it. They didn't announce that to us, but they really went with it. Some brave stories there. But with what's going on with this, the Three Jokers, now it's becoming a spiritual sequel to The Killing Joke, as you can see here. And this is where I'm just sort of shaking my head. It's going to the Black Label brand of DC Comics, which at first I thought was just going to be a replacement for Vertigo Comics, but it's been a place where you can have the creators go and tell these standalone stories that have nothing to do with continuity. So where they're sticking in a Black Label, I don't think this story is really going to count per se if you're into the DC Comics, the continuity and stuff, but it should be a cool standalone story by itself, much like what we used to get back in the day. Hey, Rob Ripa is out there. Great to see you, Rob. Awesome, man. Doing a stream in the middle of the day. I'm surprised anybody showed up. That's awesome. You know, we kind of work for a living. So here we are with IGN. There was an article Monday from Entertainment Weekly I was going to look at. I always kind of crack up about Entertainment Weekly because I think that's a smart marketing decision. They're not going to the traditional comic book news sites like Newsarama and Bleeding Cool and stuff. Basically, they turned into the Inquirer of comic book news, in my opinion. So they went sort of mainstream with Entertainment Weekly. Of course, with the Joker movie, and going mainstream is very cool on the mainstream news. Very smart, more than cool. Great, awesome. So here we are, finally getting on what's coming out here, right? And if I remember the Entertainment Weekly article, there's probably a few things that IGN's probably going to report on also that I have a few opinions on. DC Comics has finally, 4 years, 2 years since they announced it officially, going to release the Batman 3 Jokers. And we have some new details that the series connects the dots to one of the most iconic Batman stories of all time. That's funny. Here it is. And in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, writer Geoff Johns and artist Jason Fabok revealed they completed the work on 3 Jokers. That's very important to put out there, which is I'm also glad they were on Entertainment Weekly with, because of the deadlines with Doomsday Clock and the fiasco that became DC Rebirth falling apart at the end. I think it's very important to get your audience's faith that they are going to get this book out on time. And it's 3 issues, and I think they're going to be 40. Well, I'm not going to get ahead of myself here, right? The first issue is scheduled for June 17th. So we should have June, July, and August with this G5 thing. However, it's going to fall, if you will, a couple months after that. It's almost like they're just sort of putting a little bow, at least cleaning a little things up, putting a little bow on it so that we have a little bit of completion, some closure for people. By the time Batman, the 3 Jokers hit stores, it had been over 4 years since they teased the 3 Jokers storyline in 2016's Justice League 50. I was on that. And revealed that there were 3 distinct versions of the Joker running around. Now, this is one of the things I totally wanted to jump in and say, how could this have been? But they have a story to tell. So I didn't really have any criticisms to begin with, just a little bit of like, how is that possible? And they're saying this is why Batman's had a hard time uncovering his true identity. DC has also released new cover art spotlighting each Joker in turn, with the 3 villains acting out the 3 wise monkeys maxim: see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. That's amazing. And here's the art. Very interesting. We got the crowbar, so we know that's the Death in the Family Batman, who, after he killed Jason Todd, ended up becoming what did he do? He ended up working for a Middle Eastern country, which cracked me up. Became a diplomat, which amazed me. That was a very brave storyline that Jim Starlin did. A lot of people overlook that the Joker ended up coming in politics. And then we have that middle Joker. And I'm looking at this right here. Look at these age wrinkles. So this probably goes back to the Red Hood, the original Joker. I had to guess because he's very aged. And then we come over here, and with the see no evil motif here, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, this is definitely the Killing Joke Batman. Joker. Now, what a lot of people don't realize about The Killing Joke is that book, I think it was released in 1988, but that book had originally been written back in like 1983 with that everybody knew that DC Crisis, the Crisis on Infinite Earth was coming. So that was one of those stories, which is why they did such a historical event of Joker crippling the Batgirl. Brian Bolland was very slow drawing the book, and by the time it came out, it was so popular they just went ahead and made it into continuity. The Killing Joke was originally not supposed to be in continuity. It was going to be a standalone story that they sort of, let happen because Crisis was going to change everything. It just came out very late. Oh, cool. We got people out here. Eric Breen, it's a stream in the middle of the weekday. That's why I'm not here. Oh, sorry, Eric. We got Ross Sanders out there. What's up? Any spoilers for the story, Tim? I don't think so. So we're going to come back up here and look at the artwork last. According to Johns, the three Jokers featured in the story will be based on the original incarnation of the character introduced in the 40s, all the way back to Batman #1, which was also the first appearance of Catwoman, for you trivia guys, and the version seen in 1988's Batman: A Death in the Family and Batman: The Killing Joke. So they're saying two of these Jokers popped up in the same year with two major storylines going on. And believe it or not, I actually got to vote in Death in the Family. I voted to have Jason Todd killed. So the later two story dealt with Joker murdering Jason Todd, paralyzing Barbara Gordon. And it's fitting that both characters will accompany Batman in the latest Joker-related investigation. It goes back to the beginning where Batman first encountered the Joker, but it's also the Killing Joke, Death in the Family that speak to the book and that we're building off emotionally. So they're mining the past, which is one of those things that makes me kind of roll my eyes because there's been so much of that. They've mined Alan Moore to death with Black Knight, Doomsday Clock. I totally get that this is a business. They own these stories, and they're trying to kind of homage the past and everything. But at the same time, it might be time to sort of acknowledge the past and build forward. I'm hoping they're not doing the thing where they're just adding to history that didn't need to be added to. Barbara and Jason have gone through so much, as has Bruce, and it's finally focused on healing, on scars and wounds, and what that does to somebody. If you suffer some trauma, you can't just get over it and move on with your life. It changes who you are. Sometimes it changes who you are for the better. I really hope this story doesn't go dark and into trauma. I tried to watch the Justice League and the Fatal Five cartoon, straight to DVD cartoon. That should have been very cool, but they took Starman and one of the Green Lanterns, and they really delved into trauma. And my thing is I'm a social worker, so believe it or not, I'm really not into stuff that reminds me of work because I end up critiquing or, I don't want to go into work mode, if you will. Okay, sometimes it changes you for the better. Sometimes it changes you for the worse. You can heal right. You can heal wrong. That's really what the book is about. Healing right, healing wrong, and surviving. So there's definitely a theme here. If you look how Batgirl became Oracle and then returned as Batgirl, and then you look at the path Jason Todd has gone down as the Red Hood, and he should have been hushed, in my opinion. There's a lot going on there that, it sounds like there's enough to have a really rich story there. With some layers. This could be good reading. I just hope he doesn't try to write like Alan Moore, and I hope he writes like Geoff Johns. The Killing Joke will have an especially profound influence on the series. Not only will the three Jokers build on one of the greatest tragedies of all the Batman family, the book will pay visual tribute to Alan Moore and Brian Bolland's iconic tale. This means the artist is probably going to start trying to draw like Brian Bolland when you could just get Brian Bolland. So basically, much like Doomsday Clock was not really a sequel to Watchmen, it sounds like, I don't know. We'll just go on here. It's just going to be 3 issues. I can survive this. Fabok compares his work to the way Doomsday Clock replicated the language. It's like I have a little crystal ball right in front of me. If I would just slow down and not put my comments out, they're just answering them for me as I go along here. Fabok compares his work to the way Doomsday Clock replicated the language and the imagery of Watchmen, saying, I consciously infused a lot of that Brian Boland, even the way he would tell the stories through the panels. The Killing Joke is set next to my desk for the last 2 years. I've been constantly referencing it and even following a lot of the rules of how he laid out the panels in that book. I really wanted to feel like it could be a spiritual sequel, at least artistically. I would like this book to have just been a new tale of the three Jokers acknowledging history and not trying to make The Killing Joke Part 2 right off the bat. But hopefully this will be good. Oh, wow. Amazing. Okay, so we move on here. Fabok also reiterated that he and Johns are well aware how long fans have been waiting for the three Jokers and are hoping to deliver a comic that lives up to the hype. The good news is that since Fabok has finished drawing all 3 issues, the series should have no problem remaining on schedule. Well, you guys have had years to have this book completed, so I have a feeling it's been completed for a while. I really hope this doesn't fall into the trap of The Incredibles 2, where we waited 14 years for a lackluster story. But that's really going off the rails there a little bit. It hasn't been 14 years. It's been 4 and 2, however you want to look at it. Oh, there's an update. We've been able to confirm with DC that the series will ship monthly with 3 Jokers number 2 arriving in July, 3 Jokers number 3 in August. I really think this is, even with my skepticism, I really think this is really going to be one of the best things that DC will be putting out over the summer, if not for quite a while. If you take away the fact that this was supposed to be one of the payoffs from DC Rebirth, scrape that off. And now they're announcing this with the Black Label, and that's a standalone miniseries. It's a story upon itself. Hopefully that will save it. I'm just hoping there's no references to anything in DC Rebirth other than the fact that Batman will have to acknowledge that he's sitting in that Mobius chair. We also have to go with the idea that Batman found this information out a long ago and has yet to act on it. Now, I know Tom King was on that series forever. I know the Joker has popped up since then, but there's just a real big problem here with, if I got the idea that there were 3 Jokers, that's 3 times the mystery, 3 times the danger, 3 times the harm that can come to people. I don't think I would just sit on it like, wow, I don't know what to do with this. Hey, Paulo Costa's there. What's up? And then we get to this. Then I guess, okay, I guess this is one of those things, I'm really just going to have to lay off on a little bit. But Twitter is not the real world, and I have a huge problem with all these comic book companies and other companies, serial companies, and just amazing things trying to please people on Twitter. To me, Twitter is not the real world, and I cannot live in a world where you just have, 250 characters at a time to talk. It's one of the worst communication devices out there for what people have really turned it into and what they use it for. I see fans on Twitter, and I know they're getting impatient. They want this book to come out. Geoff and I have come to realize that everything will happen within its time because it's taken so long. We've actually made the story better. In my opinion, what he says they've made the story better is that they don't have to fit it into the DC Rebirth stuff. It's now going to be standalone. So that's cool. That's what I kind of predicted. Everything has come together so naturally. We're so pumped up and so confident in the story. Well, good. Okay, here's the big question. Are you still excited for 3 Jokers after 4 years? Let us know in the comments below. They'll find out find out about Joker War, a story DC is billing as the final showdown between Batman and Joker. Again, what we got out there. Cool. So see if the comments pop up on this. Hopefully. Okay. Kim Yale and John Ostrander. This is M. Fundroid. We're going way back to the 80s right there with Kim Yale and John Ostrander. If I remember right, and Paulo's out there. Paulo, you can correct me if I'm wrong. John Ostrander's wife was Kim Yale, and she passed away. Kim Yale and John Ostrander deserve all the praise in the world with how they were left to pick up the pieces of Barbara Gordon, created her Oracle persona after The Killing Joke. One of the very cool things that I really wish there was a way to elevate and bring attention to is that John Ostrander was his there was a covert mini universe within the DC universe in the early 80s, or late 80s, early 90s. Suicide Squad led into Checkmate. Oh man, I'm going blank. They had a fantastic Suicide Squad, Doom Patrol one-shot crossover that was just bizarre with Eric Larson art. Paul Cooperberg and John Ostrander. There's a Manhunter series that Sam Keith, can't remember if he inked or drew the first couple issues. That was a very unique book. It didn't really get the praise that it needed, but it had some very cool names on it. But there are fans out there of John Ostrander, and I think a lot of his, in my opinion, a lot of his fans came from his indie work. But yeah, there was a very cool, like I said, government-based little corner of the DC universe. And when Batman stuck his nose in it, Amanda Waller really became famous by backing him up and going toe-to-toe with him. Here we go, Paulo. The delays these stories go through, plus the need to produce higher quality material, mean the publishers need to start focusing on more compact stories. Well, yeah, Paulo. To me, I feel like they're just trying to salvage this Three Jokers thing. This Three Joker story. With the success of the movie and a sequel, and I've heard the movie's going to become a trilogy. Whoa. And a few other things going on. I'm really hoping they salvage the story. Putting it in Black Label and hopefully cutting ties from the DC Rebirth fiasco and the Doomsday Clock mess and Dan Didio getting removed. There's just so much stuff that can be attached to the sale of this book. And hopefully the book will have its own legs on its own, in the future when we know it's reprinted and all that stuff. I mean, look how long The Killing Joke's been around. Well, oh yeah, I didn't finish reading what we said there. Yeah. So a lot of people actually, believe it or not, were kind of upset when Barbara Gordon, out of nowhere with DC 52, came out and was Batgirl again. Oracle had a lot of fans built up over 20-some years. Couldn't agree more. I just think that the wonderful Suicide Squad cover with a wheelchair, Gordon holding a pistol at the reader and saying "Smile," issue 49, if I remember correctly. What I'm thinking about is there's 2 issues of Suicide Squad that are worth money because I've never laid eyes on them, but it actually was a sequel to The Killing Joke. Supposedly, when I say sequel, I don't mean they did a whole new story of Killing Joke 2. It was maybe an epilogue would be better, but there was 2 issues of Suicide Squad where Batgirl, Oracle, if you will, supposedly became face-to-face with the Joker. Those 2 issues of Suicide Squad, along with issue number 1, are collector's items, hot books there. And the people in the know, which amazes me, usually these people really are the people that read the comics. They can kind of become hard to find, much like an issue of Captain Atom, maybe like number 42 or something, which was the first DC appearance of Neil Gaiman's death. There's key books out there that I really like getting because it's the comic book collectors that know about these books, not the skeptics and newbies and stuff. Jazz Galaxy, totally. Oracle was just a better character than Batgirl, and the story just worked. It made sense for Batman to have someone running data behind the scenes, much like Microchip at the Punisher. One of the tropes of the 80s was to have the, you have the tech person, where these things were so new. Oh, Paulo's all over this. Let's read another comment here. To me, that means doing more special products. He's talking about the more compact stories with DC. To me, that means doing more special projects, reducing the number of comics per month, presenting a complete story in a short space of time. Paulo, I've got a video coming up where I go back to Valiant Comics, the Jim Shooter years, and that was actually one of the things I was going to bring up. So yeah, we're on the same wavelength here. For DC, if a story isn't Black Label worthy, maybe they shouldn't waste time publishing it. It could be. I get what Paulo is saying here. What we got here, we have somebody here saying, hey, The Killing Joke is garbage. That's Massimo Boy 3000. Now, I don't know anything about this person, but there was a huge backlash against The Killing Joke that I've seen raised over the last couple of years. There's 2 things going on. One of the trendy things to get attention or to be contrary and look cool online and stuff is to bash classic stories from the past. Watchmen, a lot of Alan Moore work, Watchmen, Killing Joke, and a lot of it was because of The Killing Joke supposedly portrayed, I'm trying not to get the YouTube bots on me, But there was an assault, let's put it that way, supposedly that happened in there. Did it happen? Did it happen? It's not shown in the pages of the story itself. It shows a brutal shooting. It shows stripping her down, taking pictures in order to make Jim Gordon go mad. But of course, this was the rise of cancel culture and all this stuff before it had a name. They were going after it. That's thus why they had that Batgirl variant cover. That Joker was painting a smile on her face. It was the whole idea was just simply garbage. Go back to Identity Crisis. People were mad what happened to Sue Dibney in that book. So I just don't really listen to these people because they need to have more of an argument than just making that statement to show off for people. I'm totally down if you don't like Killing Joke. I'm totally down if you don't like this, you don't like that. But sorry, guys, but with this online culture, you're just signaling to other people that I'm one of you. Look at me. I'm making a statement. The movie, yes. The book, no chance. No way in hell I'd watch the movie after reading that garbage book. Good for you. Why is the book garbage? People are right there with me. They know what they're doing here. Got a little here to see. I, too, would love to know why you think it's garbage. I just enjoy the hearing rational, contrasting opinions. And he says, I'm not a comic book reader. There you go. Surprise. But I've heard for years how it's a master class in storytelling. It's a Joker origin story. One bad day can break a man, blah, blah, blah. I bought it, read it, and thought it was given half the book it ended. And I thought I was given half the book it ended so abruptly. Underwhelming. You just don't understand what you're reading. Ended abruptly in what way? Because I see none of these elements coming through in any significant way. It honestly feels like half a story. Well, I think some have merit. Even I'm sorry, guys. I'm fascinated in this conversation now. I've never seen somebody actually start answering questions to defend their opinion on something like this. Well, I think it has some merit. Even Alan Moore doesn't think it's what other people have made it out to be. Yeah, Alan Moore is not a fan of the Killing Joke, even as his own work. Let me check comments here, guys. I'm fascinated with this now. It's not as good as It's not as good as people like to make it out to be. I also think a lot of people miss the point of it. Well, this is not a long story arc. Indeed, Moore isn't so proud of it, but saying this is garbage. It remains a great drama with beautiful art and some great moments. Then this is up to the other writers to explain what happened later. It really is a super overrated, though. I wouldn't call it garbage. Oh, man. Okay, so again, with the idea that if they don't like it, they don't like it, but people need to look at the era that it came out on. Alan Moore brought sophisticated storytelling and a lot of credibility to comics. And when the Killing Joke came out, it was one of the first times that a serious story was brought out with the Joker front and center. Amazing artwork, great storytelling. But I think one of the problems with it, if you really want to critique it intellectually, is that Alan Moore had fell into his formula of being able to have a comic book panel in the art be symbolized metaphor, work as a symbol or a metaphor with what the dialogue will say or what the captions would say and stuff, right? I think Alan Moore just didn't feel challenged writing the book. It had the transitions from the flashbacks and transitions of the Joker was fantastic. I really think Brian Boland shined on this, to the point that Brian Boland was very upset with the coloring of the book. And years later, we got the hardbound edition where Brian Boland was allowed to go back and recolor the artwork. So to me, Brian Boland may be the one that should be the real star of this one. I don't like it. I think it lessens the Joker as a character. Well, that's just it. If you were there, it elevated the Joker. I mean, I can't believe I'm sitting here really trying to defend the Killing Joke. But one of the reasons, you got to understand, this is before the Batman Tim Burton movie where we had Jack Nicholson elevate the Joker. Joker mania really happened outside of comics with that. Cool, man. So, to see people trying to tear down the past a little bit and read things that are 30 years old and not know what it did, it's really kind of painful. It wouldn't pull the Mobius chair. You're right, but there's always a chance they try to undo the Mobius chair with some convenient plot hole. Like I said in the beginning, that's where Batman learned the secret of the three Jokers. Who lessens it is Batman. You're telling me that the world's greatest detective can't tell that it is three different people under the clown makeup. Doesn't that kind of put him on par with Lois Lane in terms of obvious stupidity? I doubt there's anyone that can't tell the difference between Jack Heath and Will Kane than there are in that makeup. The only way this works without Batman looking like a complete idiot is that this is all multiverse doppelgangers of each other, like from the Flash TV show or something like that. Yeah, there's people, and I totally get opinions like that. That's one of the ways I was ready to go with it, but we'll wait and see what they do. Oh, nice. It's been written by Alan Moore. Oh, wait, never mind. By people were already, yep. More people out there. Okay, people are all over the place on here. Yeah, it's a lot of people talking about you can go back and look at this, what's up there. But that's pretty much what I have. Oh, what we got here? Murdoch the Pooch. I prefer the original coloring of the book. Boland may not like it, but I always thought that it had the whole fever dream-like vibe to the story that the story creates. Yeah, I'd really like to sit there and compare the original coloring with what Boland did. I have looked at it. I read it in a Books a Million back when it first came out, when you could actually just sit down and read the books. They actually had a reading section. And I went through and I didn't buy it because at that point in time, I think I already had like 2 or 3 copies of The Killing Joke of different printings. And I could totally see how he was frustrated with some of his visions, but I saw places where it definitely improved it, and I saw places that it didn't. And the whole fever dream idea, Murdoch, I totally agree with you. So let's take a look at a little bit of the artwork here. We have 8 images. Okay. These are probably the covers, I would imagine, if they're going to do this. These possibly could be the 3 covers, or are they going to put all 3 on there? Oh, no. Right away, Rainy Night. We got the pan out idea from the Killing Joke here, setting it up like it's a little mini movie. Oh, I don't know if I like that. I might have to keep my opinion down. Yeah, we have a lot of transitional. There's a lot of line detail in there that really kind of comes off. Is there any way to make this bigger? Yeah, so we have the Bat Cave and the bats and the transition on the first 3 panels here. Black. We have spaces where the bats are separating and getting some distance to them when we back up. Yeah, a lot of establishing shots. Interesting. Yeah, and one of the things about the Killing Joke is when Batman was sitting in the Batcave reflecting on how the Joker's been around and he's that one great big mystery, he can't get in there. We actually had some original artwork, was it Bob Kane days? I mean, that could be Bob Kane, James Robinson, who knows? Looking back on, older clip. I really like the nods to the past of Batman's history at that time, the Killing Joke. Something as simple as the whole Bat family in a picture frame, having a whole big montage of Joker images up on the Bat screen. We see the different versions. So we'll see what happens here. We'll see what happens. So one of the things that I really want to put out there is a minute ago we read a comment there that I'm bouncing off of where a guy says that this would make Batman look like an idiot and be on the Lois Lane level of being a detective, not being able to tell the 3 differences in the Jokers. So if say that this is planned out the way it is, when we had the Joker in the Death of a Family story back in DC 52, where Joker cut his face off, had that weird haircut, I did think this was going to be a different Joker. Like, it's not really a joke. Like, it's not really the Joker. The Joker was setting him up with somebody fake or something, right? I thought the Joker was behind it. I didn't think there was a replacement. So there's been a couple of times I've sort of wondered, was there more than one Joker? But it wasn't like this. It wasn't like a big conspiracy like this. I was sort of waiting to find out that the Joker had set him up or something. Okay. Well, guys, that's it. Middle of the day. We've talked about it a little bit. Thanks for being in there. Like I said, you have the IGN article here. There's Entertainment Weekly. You can go back, look at this work. I'm going to be picking this up. And I may do some reviews when it comes out. I mean, we got a couple months coming up here. So everybody be excellent to each other. Thanks for popping in. Thanks for commenting. Great to see some people popping in when we should be working. And I will catch you guys later.